Today we're going to be comparing head-to-head the Canon 70 Mark II to the Canon 80D. Both of these DSLRs are very similar, but there are a couple of differences that could make one of these better for you. Personally, this decision was just too hard, so I decided to buy both. First off, taking a look at the Canon EOS 7D Mark II. It is a little bit older than the Canon 80D. It has a 20.2 megapixel APS-C size sensor. ISO range is 100 to 16,000. If we take a look at the Canon EOS 80D, it has a 24.2 megapixel APS-C size sensor with an ISO range of 100 to 16,000. Alright, so now let's take a look at all of the advantages the 7D Mark II has over the 80D. 7D Mark II has built-in GPS to geotag your photos, whereas the 80D does not. 7D has more cross-type autofocus points at 65 compared to 45. It has dual card slots, one being a standard SD and the other being CF. The 80D just has one SD card slot. 7D has faster JPEG shooting at 10 FPS compared to 7 FPS on the 80D. 7D also has a bigger buffer for taking photos, so you can take more JPEG and RAW photos. For comparison, on the 7D Mark II, you can take about 103 JPEGs before it will start slowing down, and on the 80D, you can only take 53, which still is not too bad. 7D also has a higher extended ISO, so you can reach 51,200 ISO compared to only 25,600 ISO. But honestly, you're probably not going to be shooting that high because your images are going to be very grainy. Now let's go on to the advantages that the 80D has over the 7D Mark II. The 80D has a super awesome tilting touchscreen, which allows you to touch to focus and touch the menu, swipe, pinch in to zoom to photos. I don't know why they decided to not put this on the 7D Mark II. That seems like a basic feature that every DSLR should have these days, but it really is awesome. The 80D is less expensive. Right now it's around $1,100 to get the body. 70 is around $1,500 to get the body. The 80D includes NFC, which is a wireless photo transferring thing. I believe that only works with Android devices, but it has built-in Wi-Fi, which the 70 does not, which allows you to connect to the Canon Connect app for Android and iOS, where you can actually get a live view of your photo, take photos, switch to video, take video, and download your photos and videos directly to your mobile device. The 80D also has a longer stills battery life, so you can take more still photos. Basically, they were able to do that by making the overall camera more energy efficient, I guess, over the 70. There's also less shutter lag, so you can take a photo more quickly. And apparently on the 80D, it's 0.08 of a second, and on the 70 Mark II, it's 0.25 of a second. I was not aware of that big difference right there. We already covered that the 80D has more megapixels at 24.2 compared to 20.2, and also is newer. This is 10 months old at the time of posting this video. This guy is 2 years old. There's also a ton of similarities between these two that I've not covered. If you want to find out more information about either one of these, there are links down in the description below to find out more about these cameras. I'll also leave a link to the top 10 lenses for these two cameras if you want to check out that. Okay, so now that we've talked about all of the technical differences between these two cameras, I want to talk about the overall general purpose, I guess, of these two cameras. So not anything that you can technically say this one's better than that one, or vice versa. I'm talking about the general use and I guess kind of personal feelings about these two. First off, 7D Mark II, it does do video. It can do 1080-60. What they don't tell you, at least I didn't know that before buying this, you can't use the autofocus when you're shooting in 1080-60, which basically makes that pointless unless you're gonna manually focus while something quick is happening. I don't really know what caused them to do that, but on the 80D you can autofocus when you're shooting in 1080-60, which just makes sense. And on that note, I feel like the 80D is just overall a superior camera for video because you have this fully articulating touchscreen where you can touch the focus, you can see what you're shooting if you're shooting in selfie mode, or if you're just shooting down low and you want to see what you're shooting, you can tilt the screen, or if you're up high, tilt it down. This touchscreen just makes sense when you're shooting video on a DSLR. The autofocus on this, I believe they say that this has more autofocus points But this, I don't really know what the technical thing is, but the autofocus for video on this guy is much smoother. It can create these awesome rack focuses. Like in autofocus mode, this is not that smooth at doing these rack focus moves. If you don't know what I'm talking about, that's the really cinematic looking pull to focus. So overall, the 80D is really for the amateur to pro video person who also occasionally does photos, I guess. It's also great for shooting action video and just all video in general. The 7D Mark II is classified as a professional camera. It's what the actual pros use, really mainly just wildlife and sports photography. And the reason just these two things and not really all that other stuff like portraits and studio work, I guess, studio photos. The reason just wildlife and sports is because it's not full frame, which is kind of important if you're doing portraits and stuff. I've actually done some phenomenal portraits with this guy, but compared to a full frame, you're not gonna get that same kind of look, and definitely ISO performance is not the same as a full frame. But if you wanna get up to that 10 FPS, you're gonna have to look at something like the 1DX, which I believe $6,000. So this definitely has its place, even though it's getting on 2 years old. If you're doing sports photography or wildlife, where stuff is moving fast and you need really crisp, sharp images, I would definitely recommend the 7D Mark II for that. Thank you for watching. If you made it this far, don't forget to leave a like on this video, and I want to hear your comments. Which one do you think is better for which category? There's definitely a place for both of these. They're not the same thing whatsoever, even though their specs look very comparable. Once again, I've left links to both of these cameras and that list of 10 best lenses for these cameras. All of that is in the description below. Thank you for watching, and as always, don't forget to keep it pro.